the basement apartment on Elm Street. Never ignore your gut feeling. We've all heard that advice 1,000 times, right? It's that evolutionary whisper in the back of your mind, the ancient survival mechanism that tells you a shadow is too long, a smile is too wide, or a street is too quiet. But when you're 23, fresh out of college, and desperate to survive on your own in a city that's eating your bank account alive, you learn to silence that whisper. You call it paranoia. You call it anxiety. That was my first and perhaps most fatal mistake. My name is Maya. 2 years ago, I landed what I thought was my dream entry-level job at a prestigious marketing firm downtown. The office was on the 34th floor of a gleaming glass skyscraper. It felt like the pinnacle of modern independence, but the reality of living in the city quickly hit me. Rent was astronomical. For months, I lived in a cramped, moldy studio with 2 roommates who stole my food and left the front door unlocked. I needed to get out. I needed my own space. No drama, no shared walls, just me transitioning into adulthood. That was when I found a listing on Craigslist. Beautifully renovated basement apartment in a historic Victorian home. Quiet, isolated property, safe neighborhood, perfect for a young professional or student. Utilities included, $700 a month. In that housing market, $700 for a private apartment was practically a miracle. I messaged the landlord immediately. The next day, I took an Uber out to Elm Street. The further we drove from the city, the sparser the houses became. By the time the driver pulled up to the address, the city skyline was a distant jagged memory on the horizon. The house was massive, a 3-story Victorian structure built in the late 1800s, surrounded by acres of overgrown pine trees and tall wild grass. The nearest neighbor was at least half a mile down a winding, unlit country road. It felt lonely, almost forgotten by time. The landlord, Arthur, was waiting for me on the porch. He was in his late 30s, clean-cut and meticulously dressed in a pressed blue Oxford shirt and khaki pants. He wore thin wire-rimmed glasses and spoke with the soft, deliberate cadence of a university professor. He told me he was a freelance software engineer who worked entirely from home. "I value my privacy, Maya," he said, offering a warm, reassuring smile as he adjusted his glasses. "And because I value mine, I respect my tenants' privacy just as much. You will have your own private side entrance. You won't even know I'm here." He showed me the basement. It was stunning. Exposed brick walls, brand new hardwood floors, a modern kitchenette, and a cozy bedroom with small rectangular windows near the ceiling that looked out onto the backyard grass. There was only one strange thing during the tour. In the corner of the bedroom closet, there was a small wooden hatch secured by a heavy latch. "What's through here?" I asked, touching the cold wood. Arthur's smile didn't fade, but his eyes seemed to harden for a fraction of a second. "Oh, just an old crawl space. It runs under the main house. Unfinished, damp dirt, completely empty. I keep it locked from my side of the house for safety. You don't need to worry about it." I didn't worry about it. I was blinded by the price and the beauty of the space. I signed the lease that very afternoon. I thought I had struck gold. I thought I was finally living the independent life I deserved. I had no idea I had just walked willingly into a meticulously crafted hunting ground. The first month was blissful. I established a routine. Wake up at 6 a.m., order an Uber to the corporate high-rise downtown, work my 9 to 5, and come home. At night, I'd scroll through Tinder, looking for a distraction from the exhaustion of my new corporate life. It was a typical, independent 20-something lifestyle, but then the atmosphere began to shift, slowly at first. So slowly that I could excuse every single occurrence. Red flag number 1 was the unregulated temperature. The basement apartment didn't have its own thermostat. The heating and cooling were controlled entirely from Arthur's main house, upstairs. Around my 5th week there, the apartment started getting freezing cold at night. I'm talking teeth-chattering, breath-fogging cold. Whenever I texted Arthur, he would reply instantly, apologizing profusely. "So sorry, Maya, the old Victorian system glitched again. Fixing it now." Within minutes, the vents would roar to life, blasting warm air. But after 2 weeks, I noticed a terrifying pattern. The heat never failed during the day. It never failed when I was home early. It only went out on the nights when I stayed out late, or when I arrived home past midnight. It felt deliberate. It felt like a test, a way to see if I would text him, a way to confirm exactly what time I was lying in my bed. Then came the footsteps. Because I lived directly underneath Arthur, I expected to hear some ambient noise. Walking, moving furniture, the faint hum of his television. But Arthur's movements didn't align with human nature. Sometimes I would lie awake at 3 a.m. and hear his footsteps directly above my bedroom. He wasn't pacing. He would take 3 steps, stop and stand perfectly still for 10-15 minutes. Then he would take 2 more steps and stop again. It didn't sound like someone living their life. It sounded like someone standing perfectly still in the dark, pressing their ear against the floorboards, listening to me breathe. To escape the growing unease at home, I poured myself into my social life. I started talking to a guy on Tinder named Julian. Julian's profile checked all the boxes. He claimed to be a literature PhD student at the local university. His photos showed him reading in cozy coffee shops or hiking in the mountains. He was charming, articulate, and used sophisticated language that made me feel safe. We agreed to meet on a Friday night at a dimly lit upscale lounge downtown. The date started well, but as the night wore on, the red flags began to pile up. Julian was a pseudo-intellectual. He loved the sound of his own voice, often cutting me off to quote philosophy. But what truly disturbed me was his intense focus on my living situation. "So you live all the way out on Elm Street?" he asked, swirling his drink. "In that big, isolated Victorian house. Isn't it lonely out there? A beautiful girl like you, completely cut off from the world." My hand froze on my glass. "I don't think I ever told you I lived on Elm Street, Julian. I only told you I lived in the northern suburbs." Julian didn't flinch. He just laughed, a low, smooth sound, and adjusted his glasses in a way that felt sickeningly familiar. "Oh, you must have mentioned it in our chat logs, Maya. You forget how much you share." Later that night, I checked our entire text history. I had never typed the words Elm Street, not once. Feeling a sudden wave of dread, I told him I had a headache and needed to leave. Julian didn't try to stop me. He just leaned back in his chair, smiling that smug, all-knowing smile. "Be careful on the way home, Maya. The world is a dangerous place for a girl who walks alone." Let me tell you about the ride home that night, because it was another nightmare entirely. The Uber that picked me up was a dented black sedan. The driver was a middle-aged man with a baseball cap pulled low over his face. When I got in, The car smelled awful, like cheap air freshener mixed with old dampness, like a cellar that hadn't seen daylight in years. I said good evening, but he didn't reply. We drove in silence through the pouring rain. Normally, the route from downtown to Elm Street is a straight shot down the highway. But about 10 minutes into the trip, the driver abruptly took an off-ramp and steered the car down a narrow, unlit back road flanked by thick pine trees. I checked my phone. The GPS on the app was glitching, spinning in circles. "Excuse me, I think you took a wrong turn," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer, just the steady rhythmic clicking of the windshield wipers. I looked up at the rearview mirror and realized his eyes were fixed entirely on me, not on the road, on me. "Pull over, please. I want to get out," I said, my hand instinctively reaching for the door handle. "This way is faster," he muttered, his voice flat and devoid of any warmth. "Highway is backed up. Young girls should learn to be patient." There was nothing outside but pitch-black woods, no houses, no streetlights. I knew that if he stopped the car there, nobody would hear me scream. In a moment of sheer desperation, I grabbed a heavy metal pen from my purse, held it like a weapon, and banged it hard against the side window. I've already shared my live location with my boyfriend, and he's a police officer. He's tracking this car right now. Turn around, or I will smash this window and jump out. I lied, my voice shaking but loud. Whether it was the threat of a cop or the fear of a lawsuit, the driver slammed on the brakes, causing the car to skid on the wet asphalt. He cursed under his breath, violently threw the car into a three-point turn, and headed back toward the main road. When he finally dropped me off at the edge of my isolated driveway, he kept the doors locked for a few agonizing seconds, staring at me through the mirror. "You got lucky tonight," he whispered before releasing the lock. "But next time, your cop boyfriend won't be fast enough." I stumbled out into the rain and ran toward the house, my lungs burning. But standing in front of that dark, silent Victorian house, I realized the terrifying truth. The ride was over, but the real danger was inside. By the following week, the paranoia had followed me to work. If my home felt unsafe, the corporate high-rise felt like a fortress. It was filled with hundreds of people, bright fluorescent lighting, and security guards at the front desk. But the horror of the modern world is that privacy is an illusion. You can be surrounded by a crowd and still be completely isolated. Enter Thomas. Thomas worked in the IT and cybersecurity department on the floor directly below mine. He was brilliant with computers, the kind of guy who could fix a corrupted server in minutes, but he lacked basic human empathy. He was arrogant, awkward, and had a habit of invading personal space. Lately, Thomas had been appearing at my cubicle far too often. "Hey Maya, noticed your system was experiencing some latency from our server logs," he said one afternoon, leaning over my shoulder. He was so close, I could smell the stale coffee on his breath and the chemical tang of his cologne. "I took the liberty of optimizing your remote access portal. You're welcome." "Thanks, Thomas, but you didn't have to do that," I said, pulling my chair away. "Oh, it's no trouble," he chuckled, his eyes locking onto mine with an unsettling intensity. "People don't realize how easy it is to leave digital breadcrumbs, Maya. Your location data, your IP addresses, your daily routines, your dating profiles. If someone knows how to look, you're basically an open book. Most people think they're hiding behind curtains, but the curtains are made of glass. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Was Thomas talking about cybersecurity, or was he talking about me, T? The climax of my workplace anxiety happened that Friday. I had stayed late to finish a massive Q4 marketing report. By the time I packed my bags, it was 9:30 p.m. The office was dead quiet. The lights had automatically dimmed to their nighttime energy-saving mode. I took the elevator down to the P3 level, the lowest, deepest floor of the underground parking garage. When the elevator doors opened, the air was freezing and smelled of exhaust and damp concrete. The only sound was the distant, oppressive hum of the industrial ventilation shafts. My footsteps echoed loudly as I walked toward my car, parked in a far, poorly lit corner. Halfway there, I heard another sound, a distinct sound of heavy boots hitting the concrete, echoing from the aisle behind me. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I quickened my pace, my heart beginning to race. The footsteps behind me quickened too, matching my speed perfectly. I began to sweat despite the cold air. I reached into my purse, gripping my car keys between my knuckles like a weapon, ready to fight. I reached my car and spun around, terrified. "Who's there?" I screamed into the darkness. A figure stepped out from behind a massive concrete pillar. It was Thomas. He was carrying a black leather laptop bag, his face illuminated faintly by the screen of his phone. He looked surprised, but then that familiar condescending smile crept onto his face. "Whoa, easy there, Maya," he said, raising his hands in a mocking gesture of surrender. "Didn't mean to scare you, just finished a late server migration. You shouldn't be down here alone at this hour. A pretty girl like you never know who's watching you in the dark." "I'm fine, Thomas. Good night," I snapped. I unlocked my car, dove inside, and immediately slammed the lock button. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key into the ignition. As I started the engine and backed out of the space, I looked in my rearview mirror. Thomas wasn't walking to his car. He was just standing in the middle of the empty grey parking garage, under a flickering fluorescent bulb, staring at my car as I drove away. But the nightmare of the parking garage didn't end there. As I drove up the ramp to the exit, my car's steering felt heavy, pulling violently to the right. I managed to drive out onto the city street and pull over under a bright street lamp. I got out to check my tires. They were fine, but as I leaned down near the rear right wheel well, I noticed something strange sticking to the inside of the metal frame. It was a small, black, waterproof plastic case, no larger than a matchbox, held against the car by a powerful magnet. A tiny green light was blinking inside it every 3 seconds. It was a real-time GPS tracking device. Someone was monitoring every single movement of my car. Was it Julian, the Tinder date who knew my address? Was it Thomas, the IT guy who just happened to be lurking in the dark garage? Or was it someone else? Terrified and feeling completely violated, I ripped the tracker off the car and threw it into a nearby storm drain. I got back in my car and sped home toward Elm Street, desperate for the security of 4 locked walls. By the time I pulled into the long, gravel driveway of the Victorian house, a massive thunderstorm had rolled in. The trees were thrashing in the wind, their branches clawing at the dark sky. The main house upstairs was completely dark. Arthur appeared to be asleep. I hurried to my private side entrance, unlocked the door, and locked all 3 deadbolts behind me. I felt a temporary wave of relief. The basement was warm. The storm was outside. I was safe. To calm my nerves, I decided to take a long, hot shower. I stripped off my damp clothes and stepped into the steam. The hot water felt like it was washing away the filth of the tracking device and the terror of the parking garage. As I stood there, rinsing the shampoo from my hair, I looked up at the ceiling. The basement bathroom had a small rectangular metal ventilation grate near the ceiling corner. The storm outside caused the power to flicker briefly, and in that split second of darkness, as the lights dimmed, I saw it, a tiny metallic glint, a microscopic reflection of light coming from inside the dark air vent. My breath caught in my throat. Every muscle in my body froze. I stepped out of the shower, wrapped a towel around myself, and dragged the heavy wooden bathroom chair over to the vent. My hands were trembling violently. I stood on the chair, turned on my phone's flashlight, and pressed my face close to the metal slats. Deep inside the vent, wired through the drywall, was a pinhole camera lens. It was pointed directly down at the shower, directly at where I was standing. A wave of pure icy nausea hit me so hard, I almost fell off the chair. I wanted to scream, to cry, to run out into the storm, but a primal survival instinct kicked in. Don't let them know you found it. If whoever planted that camera was watching a live feed right now, and they saw me panic, they would know their game was up. They might act. I forced myself to step down from the chair casually. I picked up my toothbrush, brushed my teeth while looking at the floor, and walked into my bedroom, closing the door behind me. My mind was a chaotic storm of terror. Who did this? Arthur, the polite, quiet landlord who lived right above me? Thomas, the IT specialist who talked about glass curtains? Or Julian? Then my eyes drifted to the corner of my bedroom, to the closet, to the small wooden hatch of the crawl space. Arthur had told me it was locked from his side. He had told me it was empty dirt, but my trust was entirely gone. I walked over to the closet, pushed my hanging clothes aside, and knelt on the floor. I reached out and touched the wooden latch. It wasn't locked. It didn't even have a padlock on it. It was completely loose. I took a deep breath, gripped the handle, and slowly, silently pulled the hatch open. A wave of foul air rushed out of the darkness. It smelled of damp earth, old dust, and a sickeningly sweet odor, like rotting fruit or decaying meat. I turned my phone flashlight on and shined it into the narrow, low-ceilinged void. The crawl space ran parallel to my bedroom wall, underneath the main floorboards of the house. The ground was rough dirt. I dragged my body inside, crawling on my elbows and knees, swallowing the urge to cough from the thick dust. About 10 feet into the darkness, the flashlight beam hit something blue, a large plastic tarp. I crawled closer and pulled the tarp back. What I saw made my heart stop completely. It was a living space. There was a thick winter sleeping bag stretched out on the dirt. Next to it were several plastic storage bins. On top of the bins sat a collection of horror. A pile of my own clothing, underwear, a sweater, a pair of socks, items I thought I had lost in the laundry weeks ago. Dozens of printed photographs. They weren't photos from my social media. They were photos of me, taken through my basement windows at night. Photos of me sleeping. Photos of me watching TV. Photos of me eating dinner. And in the center of the bin was a high-end laptop, its screen glowing faintly in sleep mode. Thick black cables ran from the side of the laptop, snaking through the dirt walls, leading straight toward the ventilation shafts of my bathroom and bedroom. I opened the laptop. It didn't have a password. The screen displayed a multi-camera monitoring software. 4 grids. One was a live view of my empty bathroom. One was a live view of my bedroom. The third was a live view of the kitchen, and the fourth grid was a live view of my own phone screen. My phone had been completely mirrored. Every text, every call, every app I opened was being recorded. I felt a tear of pure horror slip down my cheek. The motive wasn't just voyeurism. This was a psychological cage. Whoever was doing this had been orchestrating my entire reality. Suddenly, a loud, heavy sound echoed from directly above my head. The floorboards of the main house creaked violently. Heavy, frantic footsteps were running across Arthur's living room, moving toward the door that led down to my basement stairs. He knew. The live feed had shown him that I was in the crawl space. At that exact second, the phone in my hand vibrated. A text message popped up on the screen from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a screenshot of what I was looking at right now, a photo of the laptop inside the crawl space, taken from a hidden camera inside the void itself. Beneath the image, a text appeared. "You shouldn't have looked under the floor, Maya. We're coming down now." Panic completely obliterated my reason. I scrambled backward out of the crawl space, tearing my jeans on the wooden frame, and tumbled out onto my bedroom floor. From the other side of the apartment, the locked wooden door connecting Arthur's house to my stairs exploded open with a horrific crash. "Maya!" a voice screamed. It was Arthur, but it wasn't the soft, polite voice of the intellectual landlord. It was a guttural, manic shriek, stripped of all humanity. "Maya, you broke the rules. You weren't supposed to look." I heard him sprinting down the wooden stairs, his heavy step shaking the ceiling. I grabbed my car keys from the nightstand, flew out of my bedroom, and dashed toward the main basement exit. I threw the deadbolts open, shoved the door out, and sprinted into the blinding, freezing rain. The storm was wild, the wind tearing at my clothes as I ran across the muddy grass towards my car parked in the gravel driveway. I hit the unlock button on my keys, the headlights flashing in the dark. But as I reached the driver's side door, a shadow detached itself from the thick pine trees at the edge of the yard. A man stepped directly into my path, cutting me off. Under the flash of lightning, I saw his face. It was Thomas, the IT guy from my office. He was wearing a dark raincoat, soaked to the skin, holding a heavy iron crowbar in his right hand. His eyes were wide, bloodshot and completely unhinged. "Maya, thank God I found you." Thomas shouted over the roar of the thunder. He laughed in a manic, breathless way. I told you you left too many breadcrumbs. I tracked your car here. I came to save you from him. He's a monster, Maya. I'm the only one who can protect you." Before I could even process the horror of Thomas standing in my yard, the basement door behind me slammed open. Arthur lunged out into the rain. In his hand, a massive serrated hunting knife caught the reflection of the lightning. His face was twisted into a mask of pure rage. "Get away from her!" Arthur roared, spotting Thomas. "She's my tenant. She belongs in my house. She belongs to me." "You sick bastard!" Thomas screamed back, raising the crowbar. "I've been watching you watch her for months. You don't deserve her. I was trapped, a pawn in a sick, twisted war between two monsters. The stalker from my office and the predator under my floorboards. But they weren't partners, they were rivals." With a feral cry, Arthur charged across the muddy lawn and threw himself at Thomas. The two men collided in a brutal, chaotic explosion of violence. The iron crowbar struck Arthur's shoulder with a sickening crack, but Arthur's knife flashed through the air, ripping into Thomas's chest. They tumbled into the wet mud, biting, scratching, stabbing, tearing at each other like rabid animals. I didn't stay to see who would win. I jumped into the driver's seat of my car, slammed the door, locked it, and shoved the key into the ignition. I threw the car into reverse and slammed my foot onto the gas pedal. The tires spun wildly in the mud, throwing gravel into the air before the car finally gripped the asphalt. As I sped down the dark, winding driveway, my headlights swept across the lawn. One last time, Arthur was lying motionless on his back in the mud, the silver knife sticking out of his throat. Standing over him was Thomas. He was bleeding heavily from his chest, his raincoat torn to shreds, holding the bloody crowbar. As the car sped away, Thomas turned his head. Through the sheet of rain, his bloodshot eyes locked onto my car, and he smiled. I drove like a lunatic. I didn't stop for red lights. I didn't care about speed limits. I screamed at the top of my lungs until my throat was raw, tears streaming down my face, until I finally saw the bright, holy neon lights of a 24-hour gas station on the highway. I sprinted inside, collapsed onto the tiled floor, and begged the terrified cashier to call the police. The police investigation was massive. They uncovered everything. They found Arthur's body exactly where I left it. He was pronounced dead at the scene. When they searched the crawl space beneath my apartment, they found that he had built a network of hidden tunnels, allowing him to move completely undetected beneath the floors of the entire house. But Thomas was gone. By the time the police cruisers arrived at the property, he had vanished into the dense woods surrounding Elm Street. They found his car abandoned a mile down the road. Inside the trunk, they discovered a collection of lockpicking tools, hundreds of intercepted emails of mine, and a blueprint of the marketing firm's high-rise building downtown. They put out a federal warrant for his arrest, but Thomas had completely erased his digital footprint. The IT genius had become a ghost. It's been 2 years since that night. I changed my name. I moved across the country to a completely different state. I no longer live alone. I share a heavily secured apartment with 2 roommates. We have 3 security cameras, a smart lock system, and I never ever touch dating apps or ride-sharing services. I chose an apartment on the 15th floor of a modern complex. No basements, no crawl spaces, just solid concrete beneath my feet. I thought I had escaped. I thought a nightmare was buried in the past. But 3 days ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. It was exactly 3 a.m. The apartment was freezing cold. I could see my own breath fogging in the dark room. I walked out to the hallway to check the smart thermostat. The screen was dead, but the central AC was roaring, blowing icy air into the apartment. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. A familiar, suffocating dread washed over me. I walked back into my bedroom and picked up my phone from the nightstand. The screen lit up with a notification, an image message from an unknown number. With trembling fingers, I tapped it open. It was a live, crystal-clear photograph. The photo showed me sitting in my bed, looking down at my phone screen in the dark. The angle of the photo was looking straight down from the ceiling, from inside the narrow, dark metal ventilation shaft directly above my head. And beneath the photograph, a single line of text appeared. You're still leaving digital breadcrumbs, Maya, and you forgot. This high-rise has a very large attic.